All right, let's continue with the corn and tobacco problem. We did number 15. We're picking up with number 16 now. Number 16, they said solve the linear programming model graphically. So instead of just doing this in Excel, we have to do it graphically. Now, I don't know if y'all are supposed to be able to do that in Excel. I'm not totally sure. Maybe just interpret graphs. I don't know. I'm just going to interpret the graph. Like I've done it in Desmos already, but if y'all have to do it in Excel, I don't know. Let me know. But all right, so number 16, graphically in Excel, right? So we have our constraints. We can see here. So x1 plus x2 is 410. That's going to be just like the 410 intersections one. So like 410 and 410. So this line is that first one. The second one is our budget, right? So that's probably, I'm assuming that's just got to be the other line. So this line here, and then x2 less than or equal to 100, that's our horizontal line, and that's pretty much it. So anyway, the intersection points are A, B, C, and D, and it turns out after testing all of those, point C is our optimal solution. The combination of 320 and 90 produces a maximum profit of 142,800, and that's what we saw before when our available was 410. We'll try it again real quick. Getting ahead of myself, sorry. Let's try that. Don't know why it's doing what it's doing here, but let's go back here. Yeah, so we get our profit of 142,800, so we see that there. Okay, that was the graphical solution. The next part of 16, they say how many acres of farmland will not be cultivated at the optimal solution? That would be 0, because at the optimal solution they're using 320 for corn, 90 for tobacco, and 320 plus 90 is 410, and they only had 410 to begin with. So 0 will not be cultivated. Do the Bradleys use the entire 100-acre tobacco allotment? No, they only use 90 acres for tobacco. So there's 10 tobacco acres left over, kind of. Well, they use them for the corn. Okay, so what would the profit for the corn have to be? If the Bradleys only plant corn. Now, this is referring to the graph. I'm going to try to explain it how they do. So I'm just going to use the graph, but also the answer key to help explain it. Down here, they say at point D, only corn is planted. They're talking about, from these points here, the only point that has no tobacco planted is D. Because no tobacco means 0 tobacco here, right? So the only corn planted option is 410, 0, okay? They say at point D, only corn is planted. In order for point D to be optimal, the slope of the objective function, they're talking about the profit function, the z equals, will have to be at least as great or as steep as the slope of the constraint line, which is -1. So we look at the constraint line, which has a slope of -1, and that comes from, this constraint here. They say that slope is -1, and they say the slope of the objective function would have to be as steep as that. And so we think about the objective function, which was the 300 x1 plus 520 x2. So 300 x1 plus 520 x2. And we think about setting the slope of that. We think about the slope of that. I almost think about it as think of z as just some constant. So I don't know, you could have just c in its place. I don't know. But imagine solving for x2, getting it in the form of y equals mx plus b, or x2 equals mx1 plus z. So if we solved for x2 here, that's the goal. Solve for x2, we would get, let's see if I can do this, -300 x1 plus z over 520. What we gather from this is the slope. the slope of the original objective function is negative 300 over 520. That slope is it's greater than negative 1, but it's not as steep as negative 1 because of that. So the question is like, what should this 300 be instead, so that this overall slope, negative something over 520, should be as steep as the slope of the red line there from the constraint that had a slope of negative 1. So the slope of this line was negative 1. They're saying that this objective function has to have a slope of at least negative 1 or lesser, like steeper. And so the idea is to make the corn also cost 520, or like have a profit of 520 per acre or whatever, so that when you divide negative 520 by 520, you get negative 1. So it's changing the price of corn from 300 to 520 so that the slope matches the negative 1. Something like that. I don't know. So I did it a weird way. It looks like they have a nice formula for it. I don't fucking know how that works. But 520, same idea. Okay. So the profit for corn must be greater than 520 in order for them to only plant corn. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. C. They say if the Bradleys can obtain an additional 100 acres of land, will the number of acres of corn and tobacco they plan to grow change? Yes. So let's do that here. So if the number of acres goes from 410 to 510, and we do our solver again, and we hit solve, we hit OK, and we go back to our Excel sheet, we get 500 corn acres and 0 tobacco acres for a profit of 150,000. So their profit went up like almost 8,000, and it's just planting corn. So we look at this, and they answered, if the constraint line goes from that to that, it will move outward to a location which changes the solution to the point where 105 plus 210 x2 equals that, intersects with the x-axis, blah, blah, blah. So the new point is this. So it sounds like they were maybe answering it graphically. I probably could do that. Kind of too lazy. It may make sense what they're saying though, so let me do my best to at least try to explain what they're talking about if I don't do the graph myself. What they're saying is this line that I have highlighted already, the constraint line, x1 plus x2 is less than or equal to 410. That will, if we change it to 510, move outward. And so it would be like a 510 to 510 line. So it looks something like that, which means let's see, so there's the like objective line. So something about like this line intersecting at 500 here would give us this point right here as the new like optimal value. So it's like 500 comma 0. So that's why it turns into 500 comma 0, something like that with this new profit. Okay, let's do the last one. They say if the Bradleys decide not to cultivate the 50-acre section as part of a crop recovery program, how will it affect their crop plan? So I guess if they're like lessening it by 50, make sure I have this right. I think that's supposed to say D. Yeah, this is probably supposed to say D here. Constraint line moves from that to that, moves inward. Yeah, okay. So I think it's literally saying if we change the amount of available acres from 410 to 50 less, so 360, how does it affect the outcome here? So just hit solve again, hit OK. And we get 260 and 100. So in that case, we're actually using all 100 tobacco acres, and then we're using 260. But we are still using all the acres. It lowers our profit like crazy, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what did they say? It moves it inward. So again, they're explaining it with the graph again. 260, 100, 130,000. It's still what we got here. Hopefully that's good enough. I'm going to leave it at that for number 16. Okay. Do I want to keep going? Yeah, I'll go ahead and do 17. Let's go ahead and do 17. So, using the computer. Okay, so looking at 17A, they say the Bradleys have an opportunity to lease extra land the neighbor is offering land to them for 110 acres, or $110 per acre. Should the Bradleys lease the land at that price? What is the maximum price they should pay their neighbor for the land, and how much land should they lease at that price? So this comes directly from the sensitivity report situation thing. So over here, again, they're talking about, what are they talking about? Talking about how much, what is it, neighbor offering land. So they're talking about the land, so acres usage. They said the neighbor is offering land to them for 110 per acre. Should they lease the land at that price? So looking at the shadow price for the acre usage, shadow price is 80, meaning if you increased your acres by 1, your profit would go up by 80. So think about it like this. If you get 1 more acre, if you buy an acre for $110, but it's only going to increase your profit, or let me say it like this, it's not increasing your profit, it's increasing your revenue. So you're going to gain $80 from that 1 acre, but it costs you $110. So you're losing $30 getting an extra acre. Okay, so no, you should not lease the land at that price. What is the max price they should pay their neighbor? That's the $80. That's the shadow price. They should only pay a max of $80 if they want to at least break even. And so how much land should they lease at that price? That's where the allowable increase comes in. They should only lease up to 90 acres, because after they lease 90, they lease 91, 92, 93, that shadow price is no longer good. It might go down and they might be losing more money, whatever. So $80, 90 acres. Let's see what they say. $80, 90 additional acres. Beyond 90, the shadow price would change. Okay, I think I did pretty good. 17B. Bradleys are considering taking out a loan to increase their budget. For each dollar they borrow, how much additional profit would they make? If they borrowed an additional 1,000, would the number of acres of corn and tobacco they plant change? So increase their budget. So it looks like here the budget has a shadow price of $2.10. So if you increase the budget by, I guess, $1, you're getting $2.10 extra dollars or extra profit, something like that. And they say if they borrowed an additional $1,000, would the number of acres? Yeah, it'd probably change a lot. So because their allowable increase is 1050, like 1,050, they have the ability to borrow an extra $1,000 because 1,000 is less than 1,050. So sorry, to answer this question, for each dollar they would make an additional profit of $2.10, and if they borrowed 1,000, I guess let's just change the let's just do it in the computer here. So if we change this, we go back to 410, go back to the original, and we increase the budget by $1,000, we go to 53,500. Let's give it a go. Let's solve it. Hit OK, or hit solve, hit OK. Go here, and we get 310 and 144. So I think that was greater than the original. It was like 142 originally. So yeah, so the number of acres and tobacco would definitely change. You'd be using all the tobacco acres and 310 of the corn. Let's see what they say. So the shadow price is 2,095. That's the $2.10 that we saw before. $1 could increase the profit by that much. If they borrowed 1,000, it would change the amount to 310.5 and 99.5, or about 310 and 100. That's pretty much the same thing. Okay, I hope that makes sense enough. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. But I hope this was okay. All right.